Next, we take a look at the cascading style sheets styles that are being applied to our web page. And for the purpose of this discussion, I'm showing you the web page here inside of my Chrome web browser. Now, the first style that we've defined here is applied to the entire body element of the document, and it's setting the font for the document to a sans serif font with a font size of 1 EM, which basically means 100% of the size of a capital M in the current font. And it's also setting the body to have a 10 pixel margin all the way around the outside of the content. So before we even get started, the entire content of our page is offset from the border of the viewable area by 10 pixels. Now the next style is the H1 style, which is being applied to favorite Twitter searches and previously tagged searches. And you can see here that we're setting the font weight to bold. We're setting the font size to 1.25 EM, which basically means 125% of the default capital M font. And then we're also defining a margin around our H1 elements, and the four different numbers that you see here represent the top margin, the right margin, the bottom margin, and the left margin respectively. So for the left and right margins, or the right and left margins I should say, we have 0 pixels or 0 spacing on either side. For the top we have a full capital M size space above the H1 and half of a capital M spacing below an H1. Next we have the style for the element with the ID welcome message. That's the element that's currently being displayed here, showing the string welcome to the favorite Twitter searches app. And again, this only displays the first time you visit the web page. When you refresh the page or come back to the page after performing a search, this particular text will no longer be displayed. And as you can see here, we've set a bottom margin of half a capital M and a font weight of bold on that. And by the way, if I go ahead and refresh the page, notice that that element now disappears. For all of our input elements that have the type text, of which we have 2 of them, the one that has enter Twitter search query as a placeholder and the one that has tag your query as a placeholder, for those we're setting their width equal to 100%, which again is based on the viewport width now. If we had not set the viewport, these text input elements would probably be much wider than the actual web page when we run this app on a mobile device. But because we set the viewport, these are now being set to the full width of the viewport window, which is the width of the device. We've set the font size in these to 1.25 EM to make them a little bit more readable, and we've also set a margin type of 1/4 of an EM, margin top, excuse me, and that's the spacing that you see right above each of these input elements. Now the remaining items that you see here that I've now highlighted on the screen all have to do with the formatting of the unordered list of previously tagged searches. First of all, the unordered list itself has a width of 100%, which means the width of each of these items is 100%. And for all of the list items, we're setting them to have a 60 pixel height, which is defining the height of each of these, a width of 100%. Again, that's going to become the width of the unordered list itself, which in turn is the width of the viewport minus the border or the margin around the body of the document. And then we're also setting the font size of these to 1.25 EM, again to make them a little bit more readable. For the hyperlinks that we see within each of these list items, we have set them to display in block format and to float to the left side, which is what's forcing them over on the left side here. We've set their width to 50% of the width of the list item, so they can only go to about the middle of the list item. Their position is relative to the top, and it's 50% down from the top. They have a margin left of 1 capital M, which is the space that you see on the left side of the list item. A margin top of minus 0.625 EM, which is helping us center these vertically. And then finally, they have a text decoration of none, so they are displayed without a hyperlink underneath them. If I hover over it inside my web browser here, you see I get the pointer icon in a regular web browser, which indicates that that's an active hyperlink. Now, these other selectors are kind of interesting. The list item, or li colon first dash child, is for the first list item within our unordered list, and for that one we're giving it a top border of 1 pixel solid gray. That's defining the line across the top of the first item here. And the first item is different because it has a line on the top and the bottom. All the other ones basically just have a line on the bottom, and the previous element's bottom line is the separator, if you will. So these last two basically define whether a given list item should have a blue or a yellow background. If it's an odd numbered list item, 1, 3, 5, 9, etc., then we're saying that the background for that should be light blue, and there should be a 1 pixel solid gray line at the bottom. If it's an even numbered 2, 4, 6, 8 list item, then the background color will be light yellow, and again they will have a bottom border of 1 pixel solid gray. Now obviously there's a lot more stuff that we can do in cascading style sheets to really style this up and make it even more look like the regular favorite Twitter searches app from back in lesson 5. However, we just wanted to give you a general sense of the capabilities with CSS applied to HTML in a mobile web app.